What is a scent? On a scientific level, it is a simple collection of volatile molecules, a chemical signal interpreted by our brains. But on a human level, it is something else entirely. A scent is a ghost. It is the most potent and direct form of memory we possess. It is a story told without words, a key that can unlock rooms in our minds that have been sealed for decades. The scent of a forgotten childhood home, of a lost love, of rain on summer asphalt. These are not just molecules. They are echoes of a life. My name is Carlos Mendoza. My work has taught me that the most powerful ghosts are not always the ones that haunt houses or battlefields. Sometimes, the most persistent, most tragic ghosts are the ones we breathe. They are the spirits of creators whose genius was so profound it became imprinted on the very air itself. A chemical memory waiting for someone with a sensitive enough instrument to detect its presence. The story I'm about to tell you is about such a ghost. It was brought to my attention by a brilliant scientist who believed in nothing she could not measure. She went looking for a lost chemical formula and found herself haunted not by a sight or a sound, but by an impossible, beautiful aroma. She thought she was solving a chemical puzzle. She had no idea she was being asked to bear witness to a century-old murder. This is the story of the Alchemist's ghost. Chapter 1, The Ghost Note. Her name is Dr. Eva Rostova, and she is an architect of the invisible. In the elite high-tech world of modern perfumery, she is known as a scent architect. She does not mix oils and flowers in a romantic atelier. In her sterile, climate-controlled laboratory, she deconstructs aromas at a molecular level. She can take the scent of a rare extinct orchid from a preserved sample and resurrect it, molecule by perfect molecule. She can map the precise chemical signature of a memory, of a place, of an emotion. She is a cartographer of scent. A woman who believes that every aroma, no matter how complex or beautiful, is simply a data set waiting to be decoded. Her journey into the inexplicable began with an acquisition. She had a passion for antique perfume bottles, not for their contents but for their design. At a high-end auction, she acquired a legendary piece, a flacon from late 19th century Paris known only as L'Alchemist, the Alchemist. It was a masterpiece of Art Nouveau design, a breathtaking puzzle box of swirling silver filigree and hand-cut crystal. Its history was a mystery. It was attributed to a female perfumer who had vanished from the historical record, a ghost in the archives. The bottle was, of course, empty. Its fabled scent had evaporated into the mists of time nearly a century ago. To Eva, it was simply a beautiful object, a silent monument to a lost art. She brought it to her lab, intending to display it on her desk. The laboratory itself is a crucial part of this story. It is a hermetically sealed clean room, its air filtered to a molecular level to ensure that no stray scent molecule can contaminate her sensitive work. It is in essence a vacuum of scent, an olfactory dead zone. The first event happened on a Tuesday just after midnight. Eva was alone, analyzing a data set, the only sound the soft rhythmic hum of her machines. And then it happened. A scent. It appeared in the sterile air of her lab as suddenly and as impossibly as a whisper in a soundproof room. It was not a memory. It was a presence. A single, perfect, and breathtakingly beautiful floral note that bloomed in the air around her. She froze, her scientist's mind immediately cycling through rational explanations. A contamination in the air filtration system. A chemical bleed from another experiment. She checked the lab's environmental sensors. All readings were normal. The air was perfectly pure, yet the scent was still there. A clear, unambiguous signal in a world of zeros. And the scent itself was impossible. It was the aroma of a night-blooming flower she had never encountered, with an undercurrent of something she could only describe as rain on hot stone, and a faint electric whisper of ozone. It was a scent that felt both ancient and futuristic. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever smelled. It seemed to be coming from the empty bottle. As she leaned in closer, drawn by an instinct she didn't understand, the scent grew stronger, more complex. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it vanished. Completely. One moment, it was a tangible presence in the room. The next, there was nothing. Just the sterile, scentless air of her laboratory. She grabbed the bottle and placed it inside the sample chamber of her most sensitive machine, the mass spectrometer, a device that could detect a single rogue molecule in a billion. She ran the analysis. The results came back a few minutes later. The screen displayed a single, chilling word: empty. She sat back in her chair, the silence of the lab now feeling heavy. watchful. Her rational mind was in chaos. The sensors had registered nothing. Her instruments insisted the bottle was empty, but she had smelled it. It was a perfect, clean data point delivered directly to her brain, a ghost note that defied every law of her ordered scientific world. She was not a believer in ghosts, but she was a believer in data, and she had just received a piece of data that could not be explained. She looked at the beautiful empty bottle on her desk, and she knew her work was no longer about resurrecting the sense of the past. She was now faced with a new, terrifying task: to capture, to analyze, and to identify the ghost of a molecule. And she had a chilling premonition that the ghost was just getting started. It was not trying to scare her. It was trying to teach her its formula, one impossible molecule at a time. Chapter 2: The Alchemist's Alphabet. Dr. Eva Rostova was a scientist, and a scientist, when faced with an impossible phenomenon, does not run. They design an experiment. The ghost note, that single, fleeting, impossible scent, had shattered her understanding of the world. But it had also ignited her professional curiosity to a fever pitch. If a ghost was communicating through scent, then she would build a laboratory capable of listening. She placed the Alchemist's flacon inside a custom-built, hermetically sealed environmental chamber. Inside, she could control the variables with microscopic precision: the temperature, the atmospheric pressure, the specific wavelengths of light. Her hypothesis was that the phantom scent was not a random event, but a triggered one, a chemical reaction to a specific set of environmental conditions. She was no longer just a perfumer, she was a ghost hunter, and the trap she had set was the most advanced chemical analysis suite on the planet. For a week, nothing happened. She manipulated the variables, cycling through thousands of potential combinations, but the bottle remained stubbornly, inertly empty. Her instruments detected nothing. The ghost remained silent. The doubt began to creep back in. Had she imagined it all? Was she losing her mind? Driven to hallucination by the long, solitary hours in her sterile lab? She was on the verge of abandoning the experiment, of returning the bottle to a shelf in her mind, to the sane, predictable world of measurable data. It was on the 7th night, in a moment of sheer exhaustion and frustration, that she made the accidental breakthrough. Needing a distraction, she began playing classical music in the lab, a soft, melancholic Chopin nocturne. And as the specific, resonant frequencies of the piano filled the silent room, it happened. The ghost responded. Inside the chamber, a tiny, almost invisible vapor bloomed from the mouth of the flacon. Instantly, the lab's sensors went wild. Alarms beeped, not with a warning, but with the triumphant signal of a positive detection. Her mass spectrometer began to chart a complex, unknown molecule. And the scent returned. It was not the same floral note as before. This was something new. A deep, rich, and heartbreakingly sad bass note. The scent of old leather, of rain-soaked earth, of decaying paper. It was the scent of a library in autumn. Eva stared at the screen, her heart hammering. The ghost was not responding to temperature or pressure. It was responding to sound, to the specific resonant frequencies of the music. The bottle, the crystal itself, was acting as a kind of tuning fork. A specific set of vibrations was causing a microscopic, undetectable layer of chemical residue inside the bottle to release a single, specific molecule. It was a level of chemical and acoustic engineering so advanced it was indistinguishable from magic. This discovery opened the floodgates. The haunting was no longer a random event. It was a conversation, and the ghost's alphabet was music. Eva spent the next few weeks in a feverish, surreal dialogue with the dead. She would play a soaring operatic aria, and the bottle would release a bright, ecstatic top note of a citrus she had never smelled before. She would play a dark, brooding cello sonata, and the bottle would answer with a smoky, resinous heart note of frankincense and myrrh. She was not just identifying molecules. She was reverse engineering a symphony of scent. The ghost of Amélie Dubois, she realized, was a synesthete, a rare kind of artist who experienced sound as a scent, music as a perfume. And she had created a fragrance that was not a single, static composition, but a living, responsive perfume that was designed to change and evolve in harmony with the music in a room. It was a work of such staggering, multi-sensory genius that it defied everything Eva had ever known about her field. As she identified each new ghost note, she began to search the historical archives, the dusty chemical patent logs from 19th century France, and she found them. One by one, The revolutionary synthetic molecules she was detecting in her lab, molecules that had supposedly been discovered and patented by a celebrated male perfumer named Auguste Renaud in the 1890s, were all present in Amelie's phantom perfume. But Amelie's versions were purer, more complex. Renaud hadn't just stolen her formulas. He had stolen a simplified, clumsy version of them. He had taken her symphony and turned it into a nursery rhyme. The story was now clear. Auguste Renaud, the celebrated father of modern perfumery, was a fraud. He was a thief who had built his empire on the ghost of a murdered genius. But the proof was still circumstantial. She had the science, but she needed the human story. She needed Amelie's own testimony. She returned her focus to the bottle itself. She knew there had to be more. If Amelie was brilliant enough to create a sonic perfume, she was brilliant enough to leave a final, more concrete message. Eva began to examine the bottle not as a chemist, but as a cryptographer. The intricate, swirling silver filigree that covered the crystal was not just decoration. It was too complex, too ordered. She began to map its patterns, running them through a pattern recognition algorithm on her computer. For days, she found nothing but beautiful, meaningless chaos. But then she remembered the ghost's language. Music. On a wild, desperate hunch, she converted the Chopin Nocturne, the first piece of music that had awoken the ghost, into a digital waveform. She then instructed her computer to do something strange, to compare the visual pattern of the audio waveform to the physical pattern of the silver filigree. The computer began to process. And then it found a match, a perfect one-to-one correlation. The swirling silver lines on the bottle were not a random design. They were a perfect frozen visual representation of a piece of music. It was a key, a silent metallic song, and she knew with a certainty that made her skin crawl that it was the key to unlocking the bottle's final terrible secret. Chapter 3. The Perfumer's Confession. The discovery that the bottle's silver filigree was a frozen piece of music was the final, stunning revelation. It was a lock, and the ghost of Amélie Dubois had, from the very beginning, been patiently, silently giving Eva the key. She now understood that the intricate, swirling metal was not just a cage around the crystal. It was a mechanism, a clockwork puzzle of breathtaking complexity, designed by a mind that thought in the interconnected languages of chemistry, music, and mechanics. She was no longer a chemist analyzing a scent. She was a safecracker, preparing to open a vault that had been sealed by a ghost for over a century. The process was one of excruciating, microscopic precision. Using the visual waveform of the Chopin Nocturne as her guide, she began to manipulate the silver filigree. The pattern was a sequence. The rising and falling crescendo of the music corresponded to specific pressure points on the metal. She used a set of watchmaker's tools, applying tiny, precise amounts of pressure, rotating a silver leaf here, depressing a silver vine there, following the silent, musical instructions left by the ghost. It was a process that took 2 full days of non-stop, nerve-wracking work. Any mistake, any pressure applied in the wrong place could permanently damage the delicate mechanism. Narrator. Then she heard it. A final, soft and deeply satisfying click. A sound of release. A tiny, almost invisible seam appeared in the ornate silver base of the flacon. A hidden compartment, perfectly integrated into the design, had just unlocked. With her heart pounding, she gently pried it open. Inside was not a treasure of gold or jewels. It was something far more precious. A single, tiny, tightly rolled piece of parchment, no bigger than her little finger, yellowed with age and sealed with a single drop of wax. It was Amélie's final message, her confession, her testimony, the ghost's own, handwritten account of her final days. She carefully unrolled the fragile parchment under a microscope. The handwriting was a beautiful, elegant, but frantic cursive, the words of a woman writing against the clock, in the full knowledge that her life was in danger. The text was not just a confirmation of Eva's suspicions. It was a heartbreaking, first-hand account of a genius being systematically erased by a mediocre, but ruthless man. Auguste does not have a creative soul, Eva read from her translation of the note. He has the soul of a merchant. He sees my work, my sonic perfumes, not as art, but as a product he cannot replicate and therefore must possess. He has given me an ultimatum. I am to sign over the patents to my synthetic molecules, to attribute their discovery to him. I am to become his silent, secret muse, the ghost in his machine, while he takes the stage and accepts the applause. He says the world is not ready for a female alchemist, that this is the only way my work will survive. The note detailed his threats, his escalating aggression, his jealous fury at a mind so far superior to his own. And then came the final chilling entry, written with a hand that was visibly shaking. I have refused him. I told him my creations would rather die with me than live as his lie. He did not take it well. He left my laboratory in a rage, but the look in his eyes, it was not the look of a spurned partner. It was the look of a man who has decided to solve a problem by eliminating it entirely. There is a new, strange smell in the laboratory tonight. A chemical scent I do not recognize, something like turpentine, but heavier, more volatile. He has been here. I have hidden this note. I pray that I am wrong. But if you are reading this, it means my work and my life were consumed by the fire of a small man's ambition. Do not let him own my ghost. My soul is not in my name. It is in the scent. Let it be free. Eva sat in the sterile silence of her lab, the ghost's final tragic words hanging in the air. She now held the irrefutable proof, a first-hand account of a motive for murder, written by the victim herself. Auguste Renaud had not just stolen Emily's work. He had in all likelihood murdered her to do it, setting the fire that destroyed her lab and her life, allowing him to rise from her ashes as a celebrated genius. But the villain of this story was not just a long-dead man. It was the empire he had built. Maison Renaud was not just a perfume house. It was a multi-billion-dollar global luxury conglomerate, a titan of industry with a legal department that was legendary for its ruthlessness. And at its head was Jacques Renaud, the great-grandson of the thief, a man known for his cold, calculating business acumen and his obsessive protection of his family's legacy. Eva knew that to bring this story to light would not be to tarnish the reputation of a dead man. It would be to declare war on a living, breathing, and infinitely powerful corporate machine. But she had made a silent promise to the ghost in her lab. She compiled her evidence, the molecular analysis, the recordings of the sonic perfume, and a full verified translation of Amelie's final note into a secure digital file. She sent it through an encrypted channel directly to Jacques Renaud with a simple, clear message. The world deserves to know the true story of your house's founder. It is time to give Amélie Dubois the credit she is due. She expected a negotiation, a denial, perhaps a quiet settlement. She had profoundly underestimated the enemy she had just made. The response came less than 24 hours later. It was not an email. It was a team of lawyers who appeared at her laboratory's reception. They did not come to talk. They came to deliver a message. She was being sued, not for libel or defamation. They were suing her for corporate espionage, for the theft of intellectual property, and for patent infringement. Their official outrageous claim was that she had somehow, through illegal means, stolen the formula for a new and unreleased experimental fragrance from their archives. A fragrance that was, they claimed, based on the secret, unpublished work of their founder, Auguste Renaud. It was a move of such breathtaking, cynical genius that Eva could almost admire it. Jacques Renaud was not going to defend his great-grandfather's legacy. He was going to steal it all over again in the 21st century. He was going to use his army of lawyers to officially claim Amélie's lost symphony of scent as his own family's property. He was going to take the ghost she had so carefully resurrected, and he was going to put it back in a corporate cage forever. Eva was now facing a battle not just for a dead woman's story, but for her own freedom. The lawsuit was a work of brutalist corporate art, a masterpiece of legal fiction designed not to win in court, but to crush Eva Rostova before she ever set foot in one. Jacques Renaud's legal team buried her in a blizzard of motions, injunctions, and discovery requests. They froze her assets. They subpoenaed her research, her emails, her personal records. They filed a motion to have the Alchemist's flacon, the centerpiece of her evidence, seized as stolen corporate property. It was a classic scorched earth strategy, designed to bleed her dry financially and psychologically, to make the fight so punishing that surrender would be her only logical option. The ghost story, the beautiful, tragic, and impossible truth, was useless. Her lawyer had been blunt. Dr. Rostova, he had said, his voice heavy with resignation. In a courtroom, the story that wins is not the one that is true. It is the one that is most believable. They have a century of established history, of patents, of marketing. You have a ghost. A ghost who communicates through Chopin and a secret message in a bottle. We will be laughed out of court. He was right. Renaud's lie was a fortress, built of 100 years of concrete and steel. Her truth was a fragile, beautiful, and utterly unbelievable ghost. The pressure was immense. Her reputation was in ruins. The scientific community, once her allies, now viewed her with suspicion, tainted by the scandal. The legal bills were piling up, a mountain of debt she could never hope to pay. Jacques Renaud was not just trying to silence her. He was systematically dismantling her life. She was losing. The ghost of Amélie Dubois, the brilliant alchemist, was about to be officially, legally, and permanently reinterred in the tomb of Auguste Renaud's celebrated legacy. It was during the darkest point of this siege, on a night when she was closer to surrendering than she would ever admit, that she found her answer. She was sitting in her silent lab, the legal papers spread across her desk like a death shroud, and she was reading Amélie's final note one last time. She was looking for a sign, a piece of hope, a final instruction from the ghost, and her eyes fell on the last heartbreaking sentences. He thinks he is stealing a pigment. He does not realize he has stolen a soul. And then the final desperate plea. Do not let him own my ghost. My soul is not in my name. It is in the scent. Let it be free. A profound, electrifying clarity washed over Eva. A revelation so powerful it felt like a second haunting. She had been fighting the wrong war. All this time, she had been fighting for Amélie's name, for her credit, for her place in the history books. She had been trying to force Jacques Renaud to acknowledge the ghost, to give the ghost her rightful place in his corporate story. But Amélie had never asked for that. Her final wish was not for credit. It was for freedom, the freedom of her creation. My soul is not in my name. It is in the scent. In that moment, Eva understood. Jacques Renaud and his army of lawyers could own the name. They could own the patents. They could own the history books. They could own the lie. But they could not own a molecule. They could not own a scent if that scent was everywhere, if it belonged to everyone. The ghost hadn't been asking for justice. It had been asking for liberation. The path forward was no longer a legal one. It was an act of beautiful, radical, alchemical rebellion. If Maison Renaud wanted to claim Amélie's creation as their own secret, proprietary formula, then she would make it the most open, public secret in the world. She could not win the battle for the past, so she would win the war for the future. Her new plan was a work of genius that Amélie herself would have admired. She would not try to publish the story of the murder. She would not try to fight the lawsuit. She would render the lawsuit meaningless. She was going to take Amélie's soul, her perfect, impossible symphonic perfume, and she was going to set it free. She spent the next 48 hours in a state of pure, focused creation. She sat at her computer and she began to write. She did not write a legal defense or a press release. She wrote a recipe, a detailed, step-by-step open-source guide to creating the perfume. She listed every molecule, every proportion, every step of the sonic infusion process, translating Amélie's 19th century alchemy into the precise, accessible language of modern chemistry. She was creating a key, a blueprint that would allow anyone in the world with access to a basic laboratory to resurrect Amélie's ghost for themselves. She did not claim credit. The recipe was attributed to its true creator. She was merely the transcriber, the medium. She then compiled a list of email addresses, not of journalists or lawyers, but of the true soul of the perfume world. Hundreds of small independent perfumers, chemistry students, fragrance bloggers, and DIY enthusiasts from all over the globe. The rebels, the artists, the ones who, like Amélie, worked in the margins, driven by passion, not by profit. She attached the file, and in the body of the email she wrote only a single cryptic and irresistible line. A ghost has been locked in a bottle for over a century. Here is the key. Set her free. She hit send. And with that single click, she fired a silent molecular cannonball at the very heart of the Renaud empire. The legal battle was over. The people's alchemy was about to begin. Eva's email was not a lawsuit. It was a revolution in a bottle. It spread through the underground world of perfumery like a phantom scent on the wind. At first, there was disbelief. But the formula was too elegant, too detailed, too brilliantly strange to be a hoax. And the story behind it, the whisper of a lost female alchemist and a ghost in a bottle, was an irresistible romantic call to arms. The independent creators, the ones who had long chafed under the monolithic control of corporate giants like Maison Renaud, saw this not just as a recipe, but as a manifesto. They began to create. In hundreds of small labs and workshops around the world, the ghost of Amélie Dubois was resurrected, not as a single proprietary product, but as 1,000 different interpretations. Each perfumer who synthesized the scent, from the smoky base notes to the impossible, ethereal top notes, confirmed the genius of the formula. L'Esprit d'Amélie began to appear not in glossy department stores, but in small Etsy shops at local craft markets and on niche fragrance blogs. It was a grassroots phenomenon, a scent that belonged not to a corporation but to the people. The effect on Maison Renaud was catastrophic, but in a way that their army of lawyers was powerless to stop. The lawsuit against Eva suddenly became a public relations nightmare. How could they claim she had stolen a secret formula that was now being successfully and legally replicated by hundreds of people around the world? They couldn't sue everyone. Their claim of ownership, the very foundation of their legal attack, had been rendered absurd. To continue the lawsuit would be to publicly admit that their most valuable secret was now common open-source knowledge. Jacques Renaud was checkmated. He had been so focused on owning the story, on possessing the ghost, that he never imagined his opponent would simply open the cage and let the ghost fly free. He quietly, unceremoniously dropped the lawsuit against Eva. There was no press release, no apology, just a silent, bitter admission of defeat. His great-grandfather had built an empire by locking a secret in a vault. Eva Rostova had dismantled that empire by posting the key on a public wall for all to see. The legacy of Auguste Renaud was not officially rewritten in the history books. But in the world that mattered, the world of creators and connoisseurs, a new truth had taken hold. He was now remembered not as a genius, but as the man who had imprisoned the brilliant, mysterious Amélie Dubois. His brand, once the symbol of ultimate luxury, was now forever tainted by the beautiful, democratic ghost of the woman he had tried to erase. Eva never sought credit or profit. She returned to her quiet life of science, but she was a changed woman. She had learned that the most powerful formulas are not the ones you own, but the ones you share. The ghost of Amélie Dubois never visited her lab again. Its work was done. Its soul, its beautiful, impossible scent was now free, living and breathing in the world, on the wrists and in the homes of thousands of people who loved it for its beauty, not for its brand name. The haunting had ended, not with a banishment, but with a universal inheritance. The story proves that a true genius does not seek to own their creation. They seek only for it to exist in the world. Amélie's final desperate plea was not a cry for justice or fame. It was the ultimate act of open-source creation. She had created a soul of such beauty that it could not be contained in a single bottle, and a story so powerful it could not be contained by a single lie. Her exorcism was complete, not when her enemy was punished, but when her spirit was finally and forever set free. This has been the story of the Alchemist's ghost, the tale of a scent architect, Dr. Eva Rostova, who discovered that an antique perfume bottle was haunted by the spirit of its forgotten creator, the brilliant Amélie Dubois. Through a series of impossible phantom scents, the ghost taught Eva its revolutionary formula and revealed the story of its own murder at the hands of a celebrated rival. When the powerful corporation founded by the rival tried to steal the ghost's legacy all over again, Eva chose a different path. She did not fight them in court. She gave the ghost's secret away to the world, publishing the formula for free. In doing so, she honored the spirit's true last wish, not for revenge, but for her creation to be set free. It is a story that proves that the most beautiful things cannot be owned, and that a soul once captured in a scent will wait as long as it takes to be released into the air. Narrator: history is filled with beautiful ideas locked away in corporate vaults, and with the ghosts of brilliant minds whose legacies have been stolen. Here at Crimson Tales, we believe that the most powerful act of rebellion is to take a secret and share it with the world. If you believe that true genius belongs to everyone, and that the most beautiful ghosts are the ones who fight for their own freedom, then join our investigation.
Subscribe to the channel and help us rediscover the light that was stolen from the sky.